Today we're talking linebackers. Could Cody Lindenberg be a Gopher great? And how do the linebackers shape up against the rest of the Big Ten?
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You are listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And we're getting through those position group breakdowns. We're talking linebackers today, and we only have two more to go after this one. We've broken down every single room in the Gophers depth chart. And so if you need to know about any position group, you can find all of our offensive shows from last week and a couple of the defensive ones from earlier this week as well. Next week, we are talking with Tristan Spanford for a season preview. Then the following weeks after that, we'll do more weekly previews. So the only prediction episode you might not get on this season is the Nebraska prediction, but I'll make sure we throw some predictions in there as well, just personally for that one. But today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code lockedoncollege for a free white tech hat with any purchase. Now be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube. But let's talk about the Gophers and the linebacker room, because Cody Lindenberg is going to have an opportunity to be a Gophers legend. Now, you're talking about the Gophers have had a number of successful linebackers in their history, but also in these first 6 years with Coach PJ Fleck. You've had guys like Thomas Barber, Jonathan Celestin, Kamal Martin, Carter Coughlin, Blake Cashman, Mariano Sori-Marin, Jack Gibbons, Thomas Rush. All these players have gotten looks or shots at the NFL, and many are still in the league today. So a lot of those names were all during Coach Fleck's time here with the Golden Gophers. In fact, every single one of those names played at least one season under Coach Fleck. But even with all those names, Coach PJ Fleck has stated Cody Lindenberg may be the most talented linebacker that he has coached in his time as a head coach, not just here at Minnesota, but in his entirety of head coaching. So also during his stint with Western Michigan. Now, that is impressive on itself, but with Minnesota, Coach Fleck hasn't had someone who has cracked 100 tackles in quite some time now. Since 2018, in fact, was the last time that a linebacker has cracked over 100 tackles. In 2018, Blake Cashman did it with 104 tackles. And then in 2017, Thomas Barber did it with 115 tackles. Now, outside of those two, we haven't had another player cross that 100 tackle mark in Coach Fleck's time here. But I truly believe Cody Lindenberg could be the next Gopher to make it happen. Now, Lindenberg came on board during the COVID year in 2020, and he played in 3 games defensively, totaling 9 tackles as a true freshman, but he did get dinged up in that season. You entered the sophomore season of 2021. Expectations were pretty high, but unfortunately, Cody Lindenberg went down to injury in game 2. Now, you move past that, you head into last season, and you are in the redshirt sophomore season in 2022, and Cody Lindenberg absolutely balled out. Now, he came along slowly in the rotation. They didn't give him a whole lot of snaps in those first few games, only like less than 20 in the first 5 or so games. But then once you hit that game in Illinois and beyond, he was looking at 40 to 60 snaps every single game, and he began to thrive. And eventually, after the first 7 games, he turned into a starter for the final 6 games. And you could see this guy involved on nearly every play. He was flying around the field, and you could even hear it on the games that were on Big Ten Network, where they're like, whoa, this Cody Lindenberg, he is always in the play. And he just has a knack for the ball. Now, like I said, it really took off after the bye week, where he started seeing 40 to 60 snaps a game. And from that point on, Cody Lindenberg went to be the second on the team in total tackles. Now, in that portion of the final however many games after the bye week, so week 7 and beyond, he racked up 59 of his 71 tackles in those 8 games. Now, averaging about 7.5 tackles a game. So if you take that 7.5 average, you say, you know what? I'm not even going to throw in improvement. I'm not going to throw in the upside. I'm just going to say if the average is 7.5 tackles a game, in a 13-game season, a full 13-game season, that would put him at 97.5 tackles. But if you add 1 or maybe even 2 pop-off games, like the bowl game where he didn't even get to finish it because he got injured, minor injury, nothing to worry about. He's back. He's in spring. He went through the full spring, full fall, but he got a little dinged up. I think he turned his ankle, had a high ankle sprain or something. In that game, he had 11 tackles, and he didn't even play the entire duration of the game. So if he has 1 or 2 pop-off games like that, that'll easily vaunt you into that 100 where he could be in good company. Now, Cody's got 3 years of eligibility left with the Golden Gophers, and he is a true program and culture guy. He's 100% in. He is absolutely a part of the row the boat culture, and I believe he will be the face of this defense for at least the next 2 seasons. Now, if he absolutely balls out in those 2 seasons and gets a 100-yard tackle season, or heaven forbid gets 2 100-yard tackle seasons, then I think he could be testing those NFL waters real quickly after that. And if he does just that, if he pushes for 100+ tackles in the next 2 seasons, you're talking about a high draft pick type linebacker, which is something that hasn't happened for the Gophers on that linebacker position in a while. They've got a lot of those names to the NFL, like I've said, but they've never been high draft round picks. Is that right? Yes, we're running with it. Anyways, Cody Lindenberg has the opportunity, if he can ball out in these next couple seasons, and you know what? If he does have 2 100+ tackle seasons, that will be something that I believe hasn't been done by any Gopher defender in the new millennia since 2000. I do not believe it has happened. Now, I only could go back to 2003 with the online book, and I didn't have my stat book on hand for the season, so I might be wrong for 2000 to 2002 period. Wasn't able to check that, but if no one cracked it there, then I can safely say that Cody Lindenberg would be the only defender to have back-to-back 100 tackle years in that new millennia. That's pretty impressive in itself. There's a lot of upside for Cody Lindenberg, super fast linebacker, super instinctual, and I am excited to see what it can be. But Cody Lindenberg isn't the only linebacker with high upside in this room. In fact, the linebacker room is pretty young overall. Let's talk about the depth chart, who's likely to start, who could rotate in, and who is the future of the Gophers linebackers coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Bird Dogs, because Bird Dogs make you look good. They're those stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you a truly sculpted look. Now, it's okay to look good, folks. Fellas, if you want to have a versatile pair of shorts at the gym, at the driving range, the golf course, the bar, the work, you name it, they've got a great look to them. They look professional. You can wear them wherever, whenever. And on top of that, they fit better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. So you can go on over to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege and enter promo code lockedoncollege for a free white tech hat with your order. That is this bad boy that I've got on today. So if you're sitting here and you're like, yo, I kind of like that hat Kane's got on today, you can go get one of your own for free when you buy these comfortable, versatile shorts that are absolutely worth the price. So go over to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege to get your free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, or use promo code lockedoncollege for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off, we promise. All right, Gophers fans, we're going to talk about the linebacker depth chart, but I appreciate y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all for tapping in every day. Next week is officially the first game week. We're going to do a season predictions with Tristan Spanford, who is our weekly co-host talking predictions. It's going to be a fun one. I can't wait for y'all to tap in for that. And then we're hopefully going to do a crossover show with a Nebraska co-host, Derek Pearson. He's a good friend, and so it would be nice to chop it up with him, see what the Nebraska fans are thinking of the Gophers and vice versa, get some of the keys players of the match, and also maybe we'll talk about what are the keys for winning that game and how do you make sure that you walk away with a dub in week 1. We're going to talk about all that and more next week, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of your Gophers football talk before the Thursday kickoff. Now, we'll talk about those linebackers. Like I said, we're breaking down the depth chart. And when we're looking at starters, we're looking at Cody Lindenberg, who we've just discussed in full detail. Now, this man is the Captain America of the defense, always dependable, makes the right choices, hard hitter, team player, and all over the field. Someone you can rely on. Lindenberg is a tackling machine and a future all-conference player. You can take that straight to the bank. I truly believe he will find himself on that list in the next couple years. But pairing with him in that linebacker room as a starter, I believe Devin Williams will be playing a lot of the will linebacker position. He could play some strong maybe as well, but Devin Williams will absolutely be in multiple packages for the Gophers, especially in the passing coverage. He could be a blitzing linebacker as well. He's got a ton of speed to him. He has impressed Coach Fleck and staff, and I think he's going to find himself very involved. He's taken the next step in leadership and seriousness with the college football game, and I think he is going to see that in his snaps as well. That is going to be rewarded. So when you're talking about a animal off the edge when it comes to the strong or the will linebacker on the outside, I think he is going to bring some versatility to this room that maybe they didn't see as much of with a Braylon Oliver or with a Donald Willis. Both of those guys did fantastic things for the program. They held their own and they played in defenses that were in the top 10 in the country for back-to-back years. But I think Devin Williams brings you a little bit more upside, a little bit more fast and furious with him. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him in certain packages. Then you move on to the transfer from Western Michigan, Ryan Seelig. I think he is going to be an important player on this defense. Now, when we headed to the spring, we weren't seeing a whole lot of snaps of him. We weren't seeing a lot of opportunities for him out there. I think he was still kind of getting his head wrapped around the defense and what is the expectation and the different calls, because the linebacker position is one of those positions that has to consistently communicate the right shifts, the right changes, the right adjustments for anything the offense is throwing back at them. It's a whole lot of communication and a whole lot of things you got to be I's dotted, T's crossed. So Ryan Seelig had a slower ramp into the actual process, but it seems like in this fall camp, he's really made the most. He's been in a lot of starter snaps, and I think you'll probably see him from the jump in game 1. But then we move to the rotation, and this is where I am most intrigued because it is a lot of youth in this rotation. You're talking redshirt freshman, Maverick Baranowski. Now, if you're talking any names outside of Cody Lindenberg, Maverick Baranowski is a player I really like long-term who can not only work in tandem with Cody Lindenberg to bring high upside to that linebacker core, but we've also seen sets where he could be the future of the linebackers. He's only a redshirt freshman, like I said, great instinct, getting stronger, and he'll definitely see some snaps in the rotation at both the Mike linebacker and the Will linebacker. I think overall, when you got a name like Maverick Baranowski, it is hard not to be built for it. So we're talking about Maverick Baranowski being a feature in that rotation, another player in the rotation, again, another redshirt freshman in Joey Gerlach. He played a lot, if not all of the Sam Backer snaps in the spring with the ones. It looked like maybe the transfer Seelig wasn't going to have the first shot when it came to starting in that position, but now things have kind of shifted. I think that Seelig's communication and what he was brought into the program for from the transfer portal is starting to click. So he'll probably start, but I think Gerlach will be right behind him when it comes to getting opportunities on the field, and he will get in there for sure. Now, as we know, with the Sam linebacker, sometimes the Gophers have packages where the nickel cornerbacks, sometimes the safeties will slot into that role often. So we'll see how it all shakes out from that Sam position and who plays the most snaps. You could see some Jack Henderson there. If Craig McDonald gets cleared, we could maybe see him in there. Tyler Bride is taking some of those looks. So if it's not a true nickel and we still have a nickel playing that Sam backer, there is opportunities that there will be a ton of rotation from those guys. Now, that being said, Seelig only has 1 year of eligibility left, so Gerlach will hold his own. He held his own in the spring. He'll probably hold his own in being a future linebacker for this room, and he will still have snaps that he contributes on this year. He'll probably play some special teams and is a red shirt freshman who will likely make the two deep and travel with this team. The next player in the rotation that I saw a lot more of in this fall, and I had heard a lot of good things about him in the spring. I had heard some good things about him when he played in Sundays of last season. That is Tyler Stolsky, a walk-on for the Gophers, could absolutely see snaps in 2023. He looks natural out there. He's getting a lot of run with the twos late in fall camp. I've heard he's impressed over the last year, like I've said, and now you're seeing more and more of him. Now he's got a great build. He's got a build to be a linebacker in the Big Ten, and he could be an asset who could grind for field time. So Stolsky is a name to keep an eye on, number 44 for the Gophers. I think you could see him flash in there. And if he can make the most of those opportunities, he could be a name you continuously hear for the Gophers moving forward. The last player I want to talk about in the rotation is Derek LeCaptain. Now, he was injured in the spring a bit, and it seems he might be a little bit dinged up this fall. In the last fall practice, we had availability to as the media. He was seen with the rehabbing players, so he might not see a whole lot of snaps through all of that, but he is a do anything for the team kind of player with past production, so I would definitely place him in the rotation category if he can push through the injuries and come back fully healthy. Now, when we're talking about the future young guys, we're talking about Rowan Zolman, a transfer from Miami. Wow, can't say that. Ohio. Played safety there, has the skill set to transition to that Sam nickel position that the Gophers like to run, and I think he will fit well within the defense, but I think he's going to need a year or so to really get ramped in, but he could be a player that is pushing for time and opportunities in that 2024 season. Then you move on to another player, a true freshman in Matt Kingsbury. He has the size, 6'3", 225 pounds. He can still add some weight, get stronger a bit in the weight room, but I think overall the linebacker rotation for the future is definitely in question as far as who could really assert themselves as a starter player. So if he continues to make improvements, continues to find the upside and really ramp himself into the knowledge aspect, the field knowledge, being able to communicate it effortlessly without error over this next year, I think he could push for time in the next season. Could be a larger role in the future for sure. Alex Elliott is a guy from the true freshman class 2023. Minnesota kid, has speed, needs to get stronger, might take a year or two in the program, but is a name to keep an eye on. And then you've got walk-on grinders. Now, this room is as good as any when it comes to opportunity for walk-ons. We've seen that firsthand before. And one walk-on I absolutely want to keep my eye on, he's kind of a player I loved coming out in this class, is Xander Rockow. He's from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Long-term upside, absolute athlete, has the size and the speed. He's 6'1", 230 pounds, and he is a winner. He's won state championships. The kid is from Eau Claire. He played running back, linebacker, returner. He caught passes in his career and ran for over 3,831 yards, 56 touchdowns, and 38 passes for 710 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns, on top of having 105 tackles and 8 sacks with 2 interceptions. He does it all, man. He is a worker, a grinder, and he is absolutely someone you could see pushing for opportunity in future years as he gets fully immersed in the culture and in the program. Now, on top of that, he won a state title. He played championship games for the baseball team too. He has that work ethic. And if it is what I think it is, then he is absolutely a Blake Cashman type if I've ever seen one. So I'm excited by him. But you've also got some guys who I've seen run with some twos, like Eli Mao. He's seen some 2s and 3s looks in the fall camp. He is a walk-on. Drew Wilson, Cade Larson, Jack Tinnen, shout out to them. All grinders, all putting in work, and all will be helpful for this linebacker room. But how does the linebacker room rank across the entire Big Ten? We're doing our Big Ten linebacker rankings. Coming up next, where will the Gophers fall and who is number 1? All right, Gophers fans, we are talking about linebackers. We're ranking them across the Big Ten, and we got to kick it off with our number 14 school. But before I tell you that 14 school, remember, this is for the end of the 2023 season, how I think it will shake out. Now, we're talking about number 14, and I got Purdue. I have Purdue, and that might sound shocking with a defensive coach going over that way. Ryan Walters has done some great things with Illinois in the past couple of years, but Purdue has 11 players in their linebacker room that are either freshmen or sophomores. It is a very young, very inexperienced room. Now, that's not to say that they can't find success as a young, inexperienced room, but I'm saying there's a lot more question marks. There might be more of a rotation in figuring out who really is that guy who can step up, or who are that group of guys that can step up and be the head of the team, the forefront of the team, the communicator on that defense. Maybe they're playing with it a little bit more across the entire room. So the only real proven production back on that Purdue team is OC Brothers. He'll be valued for them. But outside of that, it's young guys who have to prove it. And that's why they come in at 14 for me. 13 is Michigan State. They've got Cal Haladay. He's played a ton of snaps for Michigan State, but he doesn't grade out too well when it comes to how he produces. He graded out as a 54 on PFF, which isn't very good. On top of that, there's a lot of upside in the room with young linebackers like Snow and Gateote, but it's still pretty unrealized, similar to Purdue, making it harder for them to be any higher than 11 for me, or not 11, 13. Mixing up my numbers left and right. But we go to 12, and I've got Northwestern. Now, Northwestern has starters back like Bryce Gallagher, like Xander Miller, who are back, but neither one of them really showed that special flashes in their starting experience last year. They held it down. They graded out, one I graded out as a 66 on PFF, the other was in the 50s, so nothing fantastic. 66 is average, which isn't bad. It's holding its own consistently, but nothing to show the specialness of the linebacker room, which doesn't warrant a big jump from 2022 to 23 for me. So I've got Northwestern at 12. You move to 11, I've got Rutgers. Now they've got Deion Jennings. Deion Jennings is a name to know, absolutely. And then they've got a young guy in Jameer Wright-Collins as well. Both of them were the most productive linebackers from 2022, and they return again in 2023. I think they can maybe find themselves higher on this list, but it's tough with how the linebackers shake out in the Big Ten Conference. Then you move to number 10, and I've got Iowa. Now, yes, Iowa. That sounds crazy to have an Iowa room at 10 in the conference when it comes to linebackers, but they have some really big voids to fill in Jack Campbell and Seth Benson, both of those guys being gone. They always have the next linebacker waiting in the wings, ready to go. Not sure who that is at this time, but the question is, will it be seniors like Jay Higgins and Kyle Fisher, or will they maybe try to get some youth in that room so they have players that can carry over for years to come? That's the biggest question. Maybe it's a mixture of the both, and so then the production from your top players isn't as high, thus keeping you more middling on this list. Now, number 9, we've got the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, Cody Lindenberg is a talent that can be an all-conference type player, but around him, the talent will have to prove that they are for real. The Devin Williams, the Maverick Baranowski, Jolie Gerlach, they are all players that could be the future of the linebacker room for years to come, but they have to show they can take that step as key rotational players. And then if they can, the room can be set up nicely and maybe finish a little bit higher on next year's rankings. We come to number 8, and it is Nebraska. Now, Nebraska has Luke Reimer, who leads the room in experience. He should have a solid season coming up. He's pretty consistent overall. But then you've also got underclassman Nick Heinrich. Now, that pairing together is what helps put Nebraska in front of Minnesota and Iowa for me. And then you've got a transfer in Chief Borders coming from Florida who could bring a little bit more upside to the room and how this defense wants to play under new defensive coordinator moving forward. So we'll see. I think Nebraska's got some upside in that linebacker room, and they come in at number 8. We move on to 7, and we've got Maryland because Jyshawn Barham is young, and he's the real deal. Now, he started all of last year, grading out close to an 80 on PFF as I believe he was a freshman last year. Now, the sky's the limit for this kid, and then you pair him with a guy like Fanaje Gote, and I think they've got a lot of production from last season coming back that they can continue to build on, which is why I've got them in at 7. You kick it over to number 6, we've got Illinois. Now, Illinois is one of the stud linebackers from last year in Tariq Barnes back with the team. He'll likely lead that room and add to a front 7 that is absolutely dominant last year, but they've got 2 younger players that are looking to step into larger roles. Both saw time last year, and that was Kanena Odolunga and Dylan Rozique. Now, I think both of them will be players that step up and play a lot of snaps for the team, but all that they need from those two in order to be a top 6 unit, in my opinion, is consistent and subtle play. If they can do that, the defensive line will hold its own. And so then they can just kind of do some cleanup work, make sure they're cleaning up on their tackles, no missed tackles, no big blunders. You do that and you'll find yourself successful for that Illinois defense. We move on to number 5, and this is the highest group of theirs, Indiana. Indiana comes at number 5. 2 of the top 10 Big Ten returning linebackers, according to PFF, come from Indiana. The one comes in at number 3, and Josh Randolph came in at number 3 with an 83 grade. And then his teammate was not far behind, and Aaron Casey, who was 4th on the list with a 79.7. This is probably Indiana's best position group by far, and I had to show respect to that. So they come in at number 5. We go to number 4, and we've got Penn State. Now you've got Curtis Jacobs, you've got Abdul Carter, you've got Tyler Edelson, and all of them are younger players that will be here for probably at least 2 more, if not 3 seasons, playing 400 to 500 snaps as underclassmen last year. Now in year 2 in the Manny Diaz system, we could be talking about them as the number 1 group in this breakdown in the 2024 season for linebackers. So I have big expectations for this Penn State defense, including the young linebacker room. We go to number 3. I've got Michigan. You've got Mike Barrett and Junior Colson, both back, both veterans, both experienced. They lead the charge on a big-time defense for Michigan that has expectations to be 12-0 on the year. Now, they've also got additional players behind them that can contribute, like a Jimmy Roller, like a Khalil Mullings. So I think that they have great depth. They've got great experience, which helps bring them to a top 3 room in the entire Big Ten Conference. We move to number 2, and it's Ohio State. You've got Tommy Eichenberg, who is probably the second best linebacker in the conference, returning with an 86.8 PFF grade and a 90.1 run defense grade with 120 tackles last season. You then pair that with guys like Steele Chambers, who was a 67.6 grade with 77 tackles, and Cody Simon, who was an 80.5 grade with 32 tackles, plus the room combined for a 6.5 sacks between those 3 players. Whole lot of experience, still some youth, still some upside, still a lot of speed on that defense. Ohio State definitely takes the crown at number 2 for the linebackers. And that leaves us at number 1. Number 1, I've got Wisconsin Badgers. Now, they have the best returning linebacker in the Big Ten, and Mema Njongmeta. He graded out as 89.9 on PFF. He had 95 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and a pick last year. But then they've also got a lot of depth in that linebacker room. They've got Jordan Turner. They've got Jake Chaney. Both of them are back, creating a nasty trio for the linebackers. Plus the transfer of Michigan State's Petrowski, who has some solid upside, could be a nice rotational linebacker to work behind those trio that I just mentioned. I got to give Wisconsin the crown for linebackers in 2023, and I'm going to give them the nod. It feels gross, but I'm going to give respect where it's due. So Wisconsin rounds out the list at number 1. That's going to do it for us on today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What are you thinking about the linebackers? Who really absolutely has you intrigued and more? I can't wait for this season to start. Tomorrow, we're talking about the cornerbacks now. I know this was a worry for a lot of Gophers fans heading out of the spring and into the fall, but I think that worry has calmed down, and we'll talk about why tomorrow. I'll see you then. Row the boat, Sky Uma, go Gophers. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.